You're watching now Nazir Fear's YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share, and click that bell icon. Because tonight's stories aren't just scary, they're true. These are the 3 horrifying true Treehouse horror stories that'll make you think twice before climbing into the dark. The summer of 2022 in rural Maine was supposed to be quiet. It was the kind of season when the air smelled like pine sap, and the only noise after sunset was the hum of crickets. That's why 16-year-old Jacob Hill loved it there. His grandparents owned a 2-acre stretch of forest behind their farmhouse, and right in the center of those trees was something special. An old treehouse his grandfather had built in the late 1970s. It was supposed to be Jacob's summer getaway, a place where he could read, play guitar, or just listen to the wind through the branches. But that summer, something was different. The air felt heavier. The woods went too quiet after dark. And soon, Jacob realized that the treehouse wasn't as empty as it looked. It started one humid afternoon when he found a strange carving under the wooden ladder that led up to the platform. It wasn't new. The edges were weathered, but it was disturbing. 3 faces carved into the bark, each with an open mouth as if screaming. Beneath them the words, "Don't listen." At first, Jacob assumed it was his uncle's old prank. The family had told stories about how his Uncle Tom used to play ghost games in the woods when he was a kid. But when Jacob asked his grandmother, she frowned. "Your uncle never carved anything like that," she said, "and we don't talk about that treehouse at night." The more she avoided the subject, the more Jacob's curiosity grew. That night he took his flashlight and climbed the ladder. The air inside the treehouse was stale, thick with the smell of old wood and mold. His beam swept across the walls, where faded comic pages still clung to the boards with yellowed tape. Dust floated in the air like slow snow. Everything looked normal, until he heard it. A soft, whispering sound like air escaping from between floorboards. He crouched and pressed his ear to the wood. The whispering grew clearer. It wasn't random. It was words, faint, rhythmic. "You heard us. Don't listen." He nearly fell through the trapdoor trying to get out. The next morning, his grandfather, old Mr. Hill, was sitting on the porch, smoking. "You went up there, didn't you?" he asked. Jacob froze. His grandfather's tone wasn't angry. It was sad. "That treehouse should have rotted down by now," he muttered. "I built it for Tom, but after that summer he wouldn't go near it again." Jacob asked what happened, but the old man just said, "Some things get built on bad ground." The following days were worse. Every time Jacob tried to sleep, he heard knocking, not from the door, not from the walls, but from above, where the roof met the air. His grandparents never heard it. Once he swore he saw light in the woods, flickering through the branches near the treehouse, as though someone were inside holding a candle. Finally, on July 3rd, Jacob took his phone and decided to record it. He set up his camera on a tripod and climbed into the treehouse at 11:30 p.m. He talked to the camera, describing everything: the carvings, the whispering, the knocking. "I'm going to stay up here till I hear it again," he said, trying to sound brave. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then, at exactly midnight, the wind stopped. The forest went silent. He could hear his own breathing. And then, from the far corner of the treehouse, 3 distinct knocks echoed through the wood. He turned the flashlight that way, but there was nothing, just the rough wallboards and shadows. Then, a 4th knock, louder, this time right beside him. Jacob swung the flashlight again, and the beam hit the carvings. Except now they weren't just faces in wood. The eyes were wet, glistening, as though crying sap or something darker. He backed toward the trapdoor, but something heavy slammed shut above it. He screamed and hit the boards with his fists. The video ended there. The next morning, the Hills couldn't find him. The police searched the woods for 2 days. They found his flashlight and his tripod, but the phone was missing. The treehouse ladder was gone, ripped clean off. 3 weeks later, a hiker named Evan Lambert found the phone wedged between rocks near the lake a mile away. The video was intact but corrupted near the end. When investigators reviewed the file, they heard something beneath Jacob's screams, a second voice whispering, the same phrase over and over, "You heard us, don't listen." Experts tried to clean the audio. In the enhanced version, you could hear multiple voices repeating it, not one, not two, but 3. After that, the sheriff's office boarded up the entire area. The family moved away. The treehouse still stands, half rotten, swaying in the wind. Locals say sometimes you can still hear knocking from the woods after dark. Others claim the treehouse glows faintly under the moon, and if you climb it, you'll hear someone whisper your name from under the floor. Last summer, a group of teens went there on a dare. They streamed it live. You can find that clip if you search long enough. The video ends with their camera tumbling down and a faint, slow knock, knock, knock before the stream cuts out. No one ever saw them again. Story 2, The Whispering Treehouse, Colorado, 2019. In the quiet mountain town of Silver Creek, Colorado, people say sound travels differently. The forests are thick, the air is thin, and every word, every breath, every secret seems to echo twice before it fades. Locals have a saying, "The trees talk back if you listen too long." For most, it was just folklore, something old-timers said to keep kids from wandering into the woods after dark. But for Emily Torres, a 27-year-old school teacher who'd just inherited her family's cabin there in 2019, those words would prove terrifyingly real. Emily had spent her childhood summers at that cabin. It was a small, hand-built log structure nestled in the woods near Mount Evans, about an hour from Denver. Her favorite place as a kid had been the old treehouse her father built for her and her brother. The structure still stood, barely, in a clearing about 100 yards behind the cabin. The boards were weathered grey, the rope ladder frayed, but it was still there, like a relic from a forgotten childhood. When Emily returned that June, she hadn't planned to stay long. She was only there to clean the place up, maybe sell it, and return to Denver. The first night passed quietly. The smell of pine and the wind through the branches was comforting. But by the second night, the peace was gone. She woke around 2 a.m. to the sound of whispering outside her window. It wasn't clear words, more like a rhythmic murmuring, as if multiple people were talking at once, far away but synchronized. When she turned on her lamp, the sound stopped instantly. The next morning she walked out back toward the treehouse. The grass was dewy and cool, and the early sunlight made everything look harmless again. But as she approached the treehouse ladder, she froze. Someone had carved new marks into the wood, fresh, deep grooves. The pattern looked familiar, 3 small circles connected by lines almost like faces. Her stomach turned. That symbol had never been there before. She brushed it off as local kids messing around. There were a few cabins nearby, and sometimes teenagers hiked through the woods. Still, something about it bothered her. That night, she went to bed uneasy. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the whispers returned. Louder this time. They seemed to drift from the tree line itself. Dozens of voices murmuring together, weaving in and out like waves. Emily stood at her window, trembling, trying to see through the dark. Her eyes caught faint movement near the treehouse, like shadows shifting between the trunks. She almost convinced herself it was wind. Almost. By the third night, she couldn't take it anymore. She decided to record the sound. She set up her phone on the windowsill, microphone facing the woods, and left it running overnight. When she woke up, the forest was silent again, but her phone battery was dead. She plugged it in and replayed the recording while she made coffee. At first there was nothing. Then faintly she heard the whispering start, exactly like before. But this time, it grew clearer. The voices overlapped, rising and falling, but one phrase began to separate from the noise. Come up. Her heart dropped. She paused the audio, rewound it, played it again. The words were unmistakable. Not one voice. 3, whispering in unison, calling, come up. That day she called the local sheriff. He was polite but skeptical. Probably just kids or coyotes, he said. Sound plays tricks in these woods. He promised to send someone by, but no one came. That evening she sat outside on the porch with a flashlight and her father's old hunting rifle across her lap. The sun went down behind the ridge, and the forest fell into that strange silence again, the kind that presses on your eardrums. She tried to stay calm. But at 2 a.m, her phone buzzed on the table beside her. A text message from an unknown number. It said, come up. Her hands went cold. She looked toward the tree line. The treehouse light was on. She hadn't installed any light there. There was no electricity that far out. It should have been impossible. But there it was, a dull golden glow spilling from the cracks between the boards. She gripped her flashlight and the rifle and walked slowly toward it. The air felt heavier the closer she got, like every sound was being swallowed by something invisible. The wind had stopped. Her boots crunched softly against dry pine needles. When she reached the tree, the rope ladder hung motionless. The wood creaked above. She shone her light on the door. It was half open, gently swinging. Inside, the glow pulsed faintly like candlelight. Her mind screamed not to go up, but she climbed anyway. The boards groaned under her weight. When she pulled herself inside, the smell hit her. Mildew, damp earth, something metallic underneath. Her flashlight beam swept across the walls. There was nothing inside. No candles, no lights. Just that symbol carved over and over, hundreds of times, all around the interior. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out. Another message from the same number. You came up. The glow returned, but not from a candle. It was coming through the wood, like something bright was pressing from the other side of the walls. Then she heard the whispering again, this time inside the treehouse. The voices surrounded her. Not angry, not shouting, just whispering, faster and faster. She dropped her flashlight and bolted for the ladder, but when she tried to climb down, her foot didn't find a rung. The rope was gone. Something grabbed her ankle, cold, wet. She kicked and screamed, hitting the boards, trying to pull free. The phone fell from her hand and hit the floor, still recording. The whispering rose to a roar. Dozens, maybe hundreds of voices blending into one sound. Then, silence. Her phone was found the next day by a hiker on a trail a mile away. The final video showed the last 30 seconds clearly. Emily's flashlight flickering, her terrified face turning towards something behind her, and her whispering, "Please stop, I'm listening." Then, static. When investigators reached the cabin, they found no trace of her. The treehouse was empty, but the rope ladder was back in place, brand new, as if replaced overnight. On the inside walls, carved deep into the wood, was a new set of words. You came up, now you stay. The sheriff sealed off the property and ordered the treehouse dismantled. The construction crew refused after the first day, claiming they heard talking in the boards when they cut into them. The structure still stands, leaning against its massive pine tree, its wood grey and scarred by wind and time. Locals say when the mountain wind picks up, You can still hear her voice whispering from the trees. "Please stop. I'm listening." And if you ever hike near Silver Creek and hear someone calling from above, don't look up, because the last thing you'll see is the treehouse light turning on for you. Story 3. The Last Broadcast. Texas, August 2025. This is Nazir Fears, where every signal hides a scream. You've already heard the whistle drift from Oregon's woods to Minnesota's waters. Now it reaches its final stop, the desert air of Texas. Like, subscribe, share, and click the bell icon, because after this one, silence may sound worse than the noise. August heat sat heavy over the town of Ridgevale, Texas, a sun-bleached stretch of gas stations and half-abandoned houses off Route 67. Out here, nights were empty except for the low hum of AM radios that locals still kept running, background noise against the loneliness. Lauren Vasquez, 28, produced overnight segments for a small independent radio station called KRVX 89.3, known for its late-night true story program The Desert Line. Her voice carried through sleepless homes across 3 counties. On August 8, 2025, her inbox filled with a chain of anonymous voice recordings. Each was labeled only by date. The first file's waveform looked strange, thin, precise, as if it contained only one sustained tone. When she played it, a long, drawn-out whistle filled the studio. The frequency meter froze on 3.17 kHz, exactly the same pitch mentioned in viral online clips from The Sound of Summer. Lauren laughed at first, thinking someone was pranking her show. She left the tape running while she fetched coffee. When she came back, the whistle was still playing, but layered under it was something else. A faint male voice. She boosted the volume. It said, "Lake Waverly. It's spreading." She froze. That name had shown up all over social media a few weeks earlier, the Minnesota lake where campers vanished. Lauren uploaded the audio to her workstation, but every attempt to trim or export it crashed the system. Her co-host, Daniel Reed, told her to drop it. "If it's cursed viral junk, we don't touch it." But Lauren couldn't resist. The station's ratings were tanking, and this was content people were searching for. That night, during the 2 a.m. broadcast, she aired the clip live. The whistle bled through the speakers, pure and piercing. Phones lit up immediately, not with complaints, but with static-filled calls. People said their radios were still whistling even after she cut the feed. One trucker swore he saw figures standing in the desert fog along the highway, heads tilted, mouths moving with the tone. Lauren ended the show early. When she powered down the mixer, the meters kept twitching as if something was still broadcasting. By morning, KRVX's transmitter engineer Marvin Cruz reported something impossible. Even with the antenna unplugged, the station was still transmitting a low-frequency pulse across 3 counties. The FCC database showed a constant carrier wave at 3.17 kHz. That afternoon, Marvin went up to the tower to inspect the dish. He radioed Lauren halfway through the climb. "Something's etched on the metal," he said, breathing hard. 3 faces, mouths open. Then silence. They found him the next day at the base of the tower, body twisted but unbroken, like he'd simply fallen asleep mid-air. His lips were blue, frozen in a whistle. Lauren tried to quit the job that week, but Daniel convinced her to do one final show. "This thing's going viral," he said. "We go out on top." They scheduled a special broadcast for August 15th, inviting listeners to call if they'd experienced the sound themselves. Emails poured in, dozens of people describing the same whistle, the same sensation of being followed by it. Some attached recordings. Oregon forests, Minnesota lakes, even subway tunnels in Chicago. During the live show, Lauren felt her headset grow warm against her ears. The monitor lights dimmed and the soundboard hummed even though all channels were muted. Daniel's voice faltered mid-sentence. Through the headphones came the whistle again. But this time it was inside the feed, not coming from any external file. Listeners flooded the line. "It's in my house," one woman screamed before the call cut out. A man from Dallas said he could see someone standing outside his window, whistling in sync with the broadcast. Lauren yanked off the headset, shouting for Daniel to kill the transmission. He stood motionless, staring at the studio glass. His reflection didn't move with him. Then all the lights went out. Backup power kicked in minutes later. The room was empty except for Lauren. The recording still ran. When she played it back, her voice wasn't there. Only a male whisper saying, "June 10th, 2025, Ryan Matthews." The whistle returned, louder, closer, circling her like a storm. She ran outside into the burning night, the radio signal still echoing from parked cars, from phones, from nowhere. The whole desert seemed to breathe the same note. She made it to her car, sped toward the highway. Her dash cam captured the road shimmering under the heat. Then a figure appeared ahead, a man, dripping wet, barefoot, eyes wide open. She swerved. The camera jolted and the feed ended. At 3:17 a.m., KRVX 89.3 went completely silent. 2 days later, state investigators entered the station. They found both studio chairs empty, but wet footprints leading from the broadcast booth to the tower door. The equipment was offline, yet a faint tone still pulsed through every radio in a 10-mile radius. A handwritten note lay on the desk, words pressed deep into the paper. "It travels by sound. Don't listen." In the weeks that followed, scattered reports emerged nationwide, random radio bursts, security alarms triggering without cause, and unexplained whistling caught on emergency band scanners. Some audio technicians claimed to trace the frequency back to overlapping points across the map. Oregon, Minnesota, Texas, forming a perfect triangle. Inside that triangle, animals migrated early, phones overheated during calls. And every once in a while, when someone replayed the surviving KRVX archive, the final seconds of the broadcast shifted pitch, forming 3 barely audible words. "We are listening." No one knows where Lauren or Daniel went. But drivers passing the Ridgevale Tower at night sometimes report seeing 2 silhouettes on the catwalk. One tall, one small, leaning into the desert wind, their heads tilted toward the microphone that no longer works. And if the breeze is right, you can hear it too. A low, patient whistle, drifting through static, waiting for another summer to begin. 3 months, 3 places, 1 sound. The whistle that started in a quiet Oregon field spread through water and air until it reached every frequency. Remember, fear doesn't die, it just finds a new signal. Like, subscribe, share, and click the bell icon for more true horror every week before the next one calls your name.